Hello, this is Janet Gallen welcoming you to Love Letters Live. And today's guest is Samantha Brenner. Samantha, I'm going to introduce you and let you talk about what you do professionally. And then let's slide over to what we wanted to talk about, which was dating.
Yes.
Your
Yes.
your turn.
Well, thank you for the intro, Janet. I'm so thrilled to be here and honored to be on your podcast. We met a couple weeks ago at a coffee shop, and it was love at first sight, let's say. And I do a work podcast, and Janet does this podcast, so we thought we need to collaborate. But in terms of answering your question, what do I do professionally? I'm a director of sales. So I lead a sales organization at a company called Cisco Meraki. And I've been doing tech sales for the better part of 10 years now, which is
And
pretty wild.
what intrigued me about what you do is more than what you do is how you do it. And you make a very large point of talking about the human side of communication.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and ain't that what makes life good?
Ain't that what exactly? So that's kind of how I came to do my company podcast is because, we're a tech company and we're a networking company and a lot of the episodes were very technical. And I came to the marketing team and I pitched them and I said, I'd love to highlight the human element of networking, right? And the people and the amazing people at this organization. And that's how it all started.
Okay, and you're right. It was love at first sight, and I want to just make a good a good encouragement to talk to strangers. I know we were little, we were told not to talk to strangers, but when we're grown-ups, we can do it within, limits of safety.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we talked a couple minutes and the conversation went to dating.
Mhm.
Yes, it doesn't even matter how we got there, but you are in the dating world, right?
Right. I am.
Let's talk about dating. Okay, where
Sure.
to begin?
Oh,
First, let's begin with, well, how important it is and many aspects of it, but also during the pandemic,
hmm.
wasn't dating pretty much, put on at least a back burner, if not seared to death? During
Yeah.
the pandemic, you couldn't get together. You certainly couldn't touch, you couldn't kiss, you couldn't do any of the things that
Right.
can go with dating. So
I
what,
know.
what did you do during pandemic?
I know. I joke that I want to get 3 years back because these are some of
Uh-huh.
my prime years that I feel like were taken. But I guess let's peel back the onion a little bit further and just, dating in general in a city in San Francisco, it's it's kind of the wild, wild west out here, right? And a lot of people, use the dating apps now, which we'll talk about in this culture of the dating apps and what it's like to be on the dating apps. But San Francisco, particularly, is kind of a unique city to date in because you'll hear a lot of women at least talk about how men here have the Peter Pan syndrome, which is they come to San Francisco, right? They want to pursue tech. This isn't a landing ground for them long term, right? They want to come here, kind of strike the pot of gold, if you will, at a startup or a tech company, and then maybe leave and go live somewhere else eventually because it's such an expensive city to live in.
Okay, so you're touching on something that I had never even thought of, which is dating with the hopes of catching someone on the run.
Right. Right.
A big
Right.
net.
It's a big net. It's a big net. So that makes it a little bit harder.
And it also means that you have to get to know somebody more quickly, more deeply.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, the evolution of dating, I'm in my early 30s. I'm dating very differently now than I did when I was in my 20s,
Oh,
right?
say how.
It's lower stakes when you're younger, right? Maybe you have more time. You
Uh,
can, kind of play around and figure out what you like and what you don't like and what's important to you and what do you want in partnership, right? Are values important to you? Are you just need a sense of humor? Are you very physically attracted to the person, but maybe mentally they're not stimulating for you, right?
Oh,
So,
I just wanted to point out for anybody who's listening that physical attraction
yes,
is non-negotiable.
right.
Ain't
It
that?
is.
Yeah.
It is. But what I will say, especially for women, is that it can grow. And what I've learned through dating is that if you go on a date with someone and maybe the physical attraction isn't off the charts, but you leave that encounter feeling curious, like curiosity is my word around dating. If I'm curious to learn more, I'll always go on another date because for women especially, I think physical attraction can grow.
Oh, okay, so I'm going to backpedal on that because
Yes.
it is totally negotiable because you can meet somebody who, for a variety of reasons, seems to you physically unattractive. And as you get to know that person, they become gorgeous.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Because of what's on the inside.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again, in your 20s, it's lower stakes. And in your 30s, right? Unfortunately, women, we do have biological clocks,
So what are
right?
you doing? What are you doing now to speed up the process of finding a life mate?
Right. Well, as a type A individual who sets her mind to something and can go get it, dating kind of turns everything on its head because unfortunately you can show up, you can do the right things, you can put yourself out there, you can, be true to your values, but in life you can't control when your partner comes in, right? You can do all the right things, but I'm learning this lesson of surrender,
Oh,
which is
good.
you can do all the right things, but ultimately the universe has a greater plan and we cannot control the timing of when we meet our partner. So I think dating for me and the evolution of dating is really a love story to myself, which is, through this entirety of this process, like I can keep coming home to me and learning more about myself and what I want and self-love, right? Like filling up my cup so that when my partner comes into my life, I have a fulfilled, beautiful life,
Oh, yes, you have something really to offer. Let
right?
me ask you, what is two things? What
Yes.
is the first thing you would notice that says this could be, this is a go?
Mm,
What's the first thing that says,
this could be, I think, just checking in with your body on a date. How do I feel in my body? Am I comfortable? Am I relaxed? Am I having fun? Like really tapping inward is a good sign for me. Are we
so
laughing?
that's interesting. So you're looking at yourself for that first sign, not at
Right.
the other person.
Right. I'm like,
Very,
I'm paying attention to how I feel in my body because
very
their
nice.
opinion of me is actually none of my business, right? It's really none of my business. It's how do I feel around this individual? That's
So
what
would you
matters.
say the same thing for, I was going to say now, what's the thing that you would say, never mind, run for your life? So I'm guessing that would be if you feel absolutely yucky inside.
Totally yucky. Or
Is
just
that
bored. I went on a date last week with a guy, very successful, 38, good career, good job. He talked about himself the entire time.
uh-oh.
You could tell he was asking me certain questions to check a box, but he wasn't listening to me. He wasn't listening. He didn't care what I have. He wanted to talk about himself the whole time. That red flag, red flag.
Okay. Now,
Like,
what do you oh, well, I'm going to say, do you
yes.
have any really relevant tips or, suggestions for women who
Mhm.
are looking to find somebody to love forever?
Yes, I do. I mean, I don't have the guy to tell the story, but tips that have helped me along the way is, I think women are so focused on, does he like me? Am I pretty enough? Am I showing up the right way? Am I, and it's not about that. And I think turning around the mirror and in dating, really using it as an exploration opportunity to get to know yourself better
Mhm.
is like the greatest gift you could ever give yourself. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, who do we have? We have ourselves,
Well,
right?
that's true. That's true.
You
I,
have your back.
I noticed when I was dating,
Yes.
um, twice in my life, different, that the people who made me feel the best were
Right.
people who made me feel welcome
Yeah.
emotionally and physically and
Right.
sexually, just welcome.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
find the same was true. If you make somebody else feel welcome, what
Right.
a pull that is.
100%. Right. We all want to feel seen and heard.
If I may, I have I mean, she has since passed, had a very dear friend. And I will tell you, she was, her long term, she was, found herself single at about the age of, I would say, mid 80s,
Okay.
early 80s. And
Wow.
because her partner had died and she had gone to a grief group and walked out with the next fellow.
Oh my gosh.
And I will tell you, 80 some years old, it doesn't matter. She was so in love with this man
Oh,
and he with her. And when people talk about young love, they're not talking about young people in love. They're talking about the love itself is young,
right. The
just
feeling.
starting. Yes.
Mhm.
Anyway, sadly enough, he died not too
Mm.
much later. She, again, went to, I mean, this, over a period of time, she found her next sweetheart and married him. I think she was in her late 80s.
Wow.
And there is no limit to when you might find someone,
I know.
you
I
know.
totally believe that.
Yes. And I met a woman once many years ago when I was very young. She was in her 90s. She was playing bridge somewhere, and I was introduced, and I happened to walk past her, and she had a beautiful engagement ring and wedding ring, and it looked gorgeous on her. She was like 93. And I said, "Oh, that ring looks so beautiful on your hand." And her response was, "I have been very fortunate to have the love of two very wonderful men in my life."
Mm.
So
Mhm.
again, thinking of the other person.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
What do you think of people say, I don't even like the phrase, just friends?
Right.
People sometimes, I don't think there's such a thing as just friends. I think friendship is the top of the line. Do you think there's a way, and is it a skill to learn, to, when you're dating somebody that you really like
Yeah.
and love in some, the romance is lead,
Mm.
but the friendship is golden.
Right.
How do you shift
Right. Well, I
that
think that's,
successfully?
yeah, that has to be baseline, right? Because ultimately, if you're looking for long lasting partnership, there's the sparks will dull out, right? Eventually. We know that chemically. There's actually a lot of science around dating, and it's fascinating. So what happens in your brain in the dopamine hit when you first meet someone in that first 6 months and that honeymoon phase, there is chemically something different in your brain. And then it shifts at about 6 months. It shifts again at about a year. And then people have that 7 year itch again, if you will, right? And your brain chemistry is literally changing, right? So it's never going to be fireworks and that passion maybe that you first initially felt. So I truly believe that in dating, the charter is, as corny as it sounds, is to find your best friend, because there are going to be highs and lows, right? In that relationship, marriage is not easy. And if you're not friends and you don't have that baseline foundation at the end of the day, what do you have? Right?
Hmm. So when you're
So,
talking about a friendship, you're also talking about trust.
right.
Yes, I need
Oh,
trust.
trust is everything, right? Like when I'm on a date and someone says, "What are your like?" We talk about values. So, you mentioned earlier, what do you kind of do to date more with intention in your 30s? And I show up and I talk about my values on a date. And, I'll say,
How does that come up in conversation? Because, there are cultures where dating is a matter of getting together and sitting and talking and talking and talking. You
right,
don't go to the movies, you don't lose yourself in distractions.
right.
You focus. How do you bring these topics up, say on a first date? Like you're having dinner, you're going to a movie. Well, no
Yes.
more you're not, but
Right, right. I'll just ask,
uh-huh.
straight up. I have no problem. I say open mouths get fed. That's my favorite saying. So you want it, you got to ask for it. So that's important to me, right? In
How do you
dating,
how do you phrase it? I
I
think that
say,
might be helpful.
yeah, I truly just ask the question, hey, I'm looking for something more serious, right? I have that on my profile. So first of all, I have.
You let it be known right away that you are looking for something
Absolutely. Because
lasting.
why waste time?
Oh,
Right.
good.
So
Okay.
there's actually a setting on most dating profiles. You can say, short term, long term, something more
Oh,
casual, something more serious.
okay, I didn't know that. That's good.
Yes. Yes. So you can state, what your intention is. So anyone looking at my profile knows that I'm interested in a long term relationship. So I'll just say to someone straight up, right? What are your values, right? What's important to you in partnership? Here are what mine are, right? And hearing their responses says a lot too, because if someone has never thought about that, they might not be that serious about partnership, right? Or maybe it's not on their radar yet,
They're just, people can be ignorant of things for a long time.
right?
May I ask you what you say? What are your values? That you're,
Honesty and integrity is number one. Number one, right? Like you mentioned trust. That is
Mhm.
all we have. That's it, right? As our foundation, as our baseline, if we don't have trust, like you can't build a solid relationship. So that's one of mine. Um, Someone who's ambitious, right? And goal oriented. I don't need you to be the CEO of a company. You could be a teacher, but love what you do, have some sort of passion, right? Have some sort of drive.
and that has to do with self esteem also.
It does. It
Right.
does. And then humor is something really important to me. Like life is so hard and serious. Like, can we laugh? Right? Can we be joyful? Like someone who can bring levity to a situation, I think is so important. And
What
then
about
like
what about what about being kind of thick-skinned, like not taking offense easily?
that's a really important one,
Isn't
right?
that would be like,
Yes. You can't be too soft, right? You got to have a backbone. That's why ironically enough, I date a lot of guys from the East Coast. And I
why?
don't because guys from the East Coast are different than the West Coast.
How?
They have a little bit more swag and they're like straight shooters.
Oh, you're
So they
talking New
don't like,
York.
yes,
You're talking
yes,
Brooklyn. Oh yeah, okay. I'm with you.
yes. I'm
Yeah,
talking that kind of energy. I like that.
yes, me
Like
too.
a man who's really kind of grounded in his masculinity and just a straight shooter.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Now,
that's
does
kind
age
of
matter to you? How do you feel about older, younger?
great question. Younger's tough. Just
Because
because they're at a different phase in their life. I actually went out a couple weeks ago and I met a 23-year-old. I'm 33, and he really wanted to take me out on a date. And I said, oh, I just don't know how much we have in common. So I set up a FaceTime date where we did a phone call, and he was so sweet, truly kind of soul. But he was in a very different life phase, right? Just
uh-huh.
graduated college, trying to get his feet under him, had just moved to San Francisco. And I said to him at the end of the call, it was a pleasure meeting you, but we're just, a 23-year-old male and a 33-year-old. That's like that decade, a lot of growth happens.
Now, but it also depends on the 23-year-old.
True.
Yeah.
True. But that would be a little young for me. I would
Okay. So
say
what's the oldest that you would put up with?
like early 40s
Mhm.
so probably a 10-year age gap older.
When
But
you think of an age gap, do you
yes,
think of the future like somebody who's 23 and you're 33 now,
right,
when you're 73 and he's 63, that's not going to be much of a problem.
right. It's,
So
but it's all about where they are
getting to
mentally
that.
right
So
now.
yes,
Yes.
okay.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I'm open. I'm open. I like to say I don't have a type. Like for me, it's all about energy.
Yes.
Like, when you and I met, we just vibed and you
Good
can't
way, yeah.
explain that, right? It's like that intangible.
Right.
I feel like when I meet my partner, it's going to be just that magnetic kind of,
Now, are you aware of the fact that you could meet your partner waiting for a light to change so you can cross the street together?
yeah, yes,
Me too.
it could
Okay.
happen anywhere. You have to be so open. And yeah,
That's it. That's the best advice, I think. You have to be open, your
right,
mind and your heart and your ears, and then followed by your mouth
right,
to,
right.
to be able to.
So, advice for women talking about being open, do not wait for him to come up to you. I am such a proponent. If you see it and you want it, go get it. The
Okay, so
work,
how do you? Okay, so let's say you see somebody.
yes,
I mean, I would feel perfectly comfortable at my stage of life going up to, a stranger who looks appealing at a public place,
right.
saying, "You are such an appealing looking person. Can we
Yes,
get together and have a cup of coffee?"
absolutely. That's how you do. Two
But
weekends ago, I left my number for a guy at brunch at Mama's in North Beach. And I just said, hey, you're cute. Call me. And we went out on a date and we had so much fun. I left my number.
that's wonderful. That's, because, okay, so I'm such a girl of the 40s and 50s.
Right.
There was, no such thing in a proper upbringing. You had to wait for him to ask you.
Mm.
And, needless to say, you could either be dead by then, or you could be waiting while some other girl who is smarter and has a little more zip has said to him, let's get together.
Right. Right. So, if you're dating and you're wanting to put yourself out there, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So take the shot. The worst they can say is no. And then you say, okay. And you keep on pushing.
Okay, so that's important. The worst they can say is no, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
Because you
And
want that same privilege.
exactly. And guess what? If they're saying no to you, they don't know you. It's nothing personal, it's an energy thing. So you just keep on pushing. And I think for so long, I was a late bloomer. I really didn't start dating until my late 20s. I had so much fear. I was so nervous. I didn't have confidence. I didn't have I didn't think I was worthy.
Okay, but on that line, there's so many women I talk to and young girls and who
Right.
think, my I don't look good enough. I'm not good looking. My tush is too big. My this is too.
Right.
They focus on what's wrong. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. None
But
of it matters.
well, okay. There's all kinds of things to say about that,
I
but I
know.
think when push comes to shove,
Yep.
what people want again is to feel welcome and if you find a man who
Right.
doesn't want to go out with you because your tush isn't the right size for him, make a contribution to a charity, say a prayer of thanks
Right.
that you have nothing to do with him.
That's what I'm saying. You don't
Right.
want that type of man in your life
No,
anyway.
you
And I'm
don't.
telling
No, you
you,
don't.
it is all about confidence. Every guy I talk to will
Right.
tell me that. All my guy friends will tell me that. My brother tells me that. And then, I'm out here in the world living their advice. And it is so true. It does not matter. Of course, there needs to be some level of baseline attraction, right? I want to acknowledge that. But ultimately, it is so flattering for a guy to have a girl come up to him and say, "Hey, you're cute. Here's my number. Let's go grab
Oh,
coffee."
yes.
It is so flattering for them. So,
Okay.
and think about it, it's all about at bats in life. So, if you're doing that and you bake that into your weekly routine, you're going to start setting up some dates.
Oh, I like that weekly routine. Yes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
don't get slack over. Let me ask you something because I am so about, as you know, the power of letters. If you
Yes.
were to write a love letter right now, to
Mhm.
whom would it be? And I want to define a love letter as, either, love, romantic love, lust, inviting someone into your life, inviting someone out of your life, sharing a memory,
Mm.
and that inviting someone into your life.
Mhm.
Anyway, I don't want to be the love letter police. Who would you write to?
I would write to my future partner.
Yes.
Yes, I would write to my future partner and I would tell him I'm so excited to meet him and that I've been doing all this work on myself, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually over the last decade to prepare myself for this relationship
Mhm.
and that I have so much to offer and he's really lucky.
Okay,
And
what would you say about him? In other words, a love letter being about the other guy's good qualities, would you
ooh,
feel comfortable including, and this is what I know about you. You are
yes,
open-hearted, you are
yes,
smart, you care what I think,
right. You
and
love me for who I am.
all these things
Mhm.
that you, yes.
Yes. Well, okay, this is actually, I want to call this out. They call this manifestation, right? This exercise that we're doing, like writing a letter to your future partner, you are
Okay.
manifesting the qualities that you
Yes.
want in partnership. There is science behind the fact that if you do this and you take a pen to paper and you write out a love letter, right, to let's say your future partner, the universe is here to conspire to make your desires happen.
Oh, I think that's true. And I think part of the reason is because once you've written it down, you're more alert to those things and you're going to find it.
Bingo.
But I do want to say, okay, about writing. So I've had people in workshops and, people that I consult with in helping write letters.
Right.
And on a couple of occasions. So the first one who did this was a beautiful woman many, many, many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
She knew what anyway, she wanted to write a letter to her future husband.
Mm.
Exactly that. And okay, good. I encourage that. And my question is now, a love letter to me is something in your own handwriting, if possible,
Right.
and mailed to someone.
Oh,
To whom will you mail this?
that's a great
I know
question.
where to go. Yes.
Where? Tell me.
Self.
Yes.
You write to my future sweetheart,
Right.
care of Samantha Brenner,
Okay.
your address. And when it comes to you in the mail, you just stick it on a shelf or in a book or in your desk and you don't open it. When you meet him and it's clear that this is the person for you, you just give him a letter.
Oh, I love that. Okay, I'm going to do that today.
Fabulous. I
It's
like
been decided. Oh my gosh, I love that. That stuff gives me chills. I live for that stuff.
that. I could tell that you did. Yes.
I really do. It just like it fuels me. It gives me the warm and fuzzies.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yes.
that's such a great idea.
Oh,
Okay.
I thank you for all that you said. Thank you for doing this with me. There's so much
So
to say about dating. I met a woman once. She was actually, collecting money for a shelter and she lived there and she just was you would think in kind of a sorry state, but there was a beauty and an adorableness surrounding
Oh,
her. And she lived in the, anyway, we became friends.
yeah.
And she would, come visit now and again, and we'd sit and we'd chat. And comes one day and she wants to introduce me to her boyfriend.
Wow.
She's found an adorable man,
Right.
sensitive, smart, good looking.
Yep.
Also in the shelter, I ran into him years later, and he was working for actually super life worked out fine. But the point is, she was a really attractive woman.
Right. Right.
And when you hear women say, well, it's just too hard to find anybody. I can't. It can be hard. It can be hard.
It is hard. It is hard. And I want to acknowledge that. And I think it's become so much harder
Right.
because of the apps.
But
And
when
people,
you look around,
right.
see who has found people,
Yep.
you kind of have to learn that the world is open. If others can find, so can I if I want.
Right. If you are able to love and you want that in your soul, that's your deep soul calling, you
Right.
will find it in life. You just have to be patient and remember we cannot control the output, but we can control the at bats, right? And we can control putting ourselves out there.
Okay.
And the rest you have to surrender, right? And you have to live a life.
And really, love is out there for everyone to find. I mean, this woman,
Everyone.
I have a whole list of people that you would think maybe would have an impossible time finding a permanent sweetheart. They find them.
Absolutely. It's out there. And guess what? It's okay to be picky. It's okay to have high standards.
Yes. And
Yes.
by the way, I think one of the qualities they have is these women are not self-conscious.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know?
We all have body issue images, right? Most women do, right? And the sooner you get to a place of being at peace with your body, right? And loving your body, someone else can.
Oh, by the way, sometimes you see the most beautiful women imaginable, and listen to them. They're complaining about this, and they're going to see the plastic surgeon because the
right.
Okay, go figure. All right, thank you for doing this with me. We could talk for hours about dating.
I know. Thank you, Janet.
This is wonderful. So I hope people will take a listen here and just get all kinds of good supportive
good nuggets. Yes, absolutely. Hopefully this helps one person. If one person leaves listening to this more confident, we've done our job.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And again, the love is out there waiting for you.
Absolutely.
Job is not to screw it up.
Not to screw it up. I know. Well, I better start writing that letter right now.
Okay, I'm glad you will. Let me know.
All right, Janet. Thank you.
When you find someone and you give him
come back.
I want to know what he says. Okay.
Part 2.
Bye, dear.
Okay. Bye. Take care.
You too.